Hello, beautiful moms and entrepreneurs. My name is Charisse Walker, and I'm your host of the Unbreakable Mompreneurs podcast. This is a place where we come together to learn, grow, and inspire. So sit back, relax, and let's get started. Hello, Unbreakable Mompreneurs. Welcome back to another episode. I'm your host, Charisse Walker, and today we're going to talk about finding your purpose and a whole lot of other things. And so if you're struggling with an identity crisis or a shift, or there's something else I could be doing, well, today's your day. So Nicky Billou is in the house, a very accomplished author and entrepreneur. And so we're just going to get started. Nicky, why don't you introduce yourself to us?
First of all, Charisse, thank you so much for having me be a guest on your show. I'm very honored to be here. And let me begin by telling you a bit about my backstory, my origin story, as it were. I'm originally an immigrant from the Middle East. I'm a Christian from Iran. Iran has been in the news a little bit in the last few weeks because my brave compatriots are standing up for themselves and for their rights and their freedoms. Many of them have been slaughtered in the streets. Their reports are over 50,000 people, most of them young, have been brutally murdered by this regime, and over 350,000 have been injured to some degree or another. They've used chemical weapons on our people. They've shot young people in the face with bullets to disfigure them. It's absolutely horrible. But at the time when I left Iran, I was a kid. At the age of 11 in 78, the Islamic Revolution started, and the pro-Western, forward-thinking, moderate regime of the Shah, which had a vision to turn Iran into one of the five great powers of the world, was overthrown by this unholy alliance of the red and the black, the Islamists and the Marxists. And the Islamists ended up killing all the Marxists and taking over the government, and they started repressing the people. And there were literally gun battles going on in the streets near my home. So my mom and dad, they were freaking out about this. And then one day their freak out factor went up 100-fold, 1,000-fold, because there was a crash through our living room window. And this object smashed the window, shards of glass flew everywhere. And this object landed near my feet. Now, I'm 11 at the time, and I don't know what the heck it is, but it was this glass bottle full of liquid with a rag in it that was burning. It was a Molotov cocktail. My father knew exactly what it was, and he rushed, grabbed it, and pulled out the burning rag so it didn't explode, which is why you and I get to talk today, right? Wow. And that was the point where, and maybe you can relate as a mom yourself, that they were like, that's it. We're out of here. This ain't a place to raise a Christian family. And it took them a couple of years, but they managed to plan our departure from Iran. I lived in Tehran, which is the capital city, one of the largest cities in the world. And we left for Europe, for Athens, Greece, the capital city of Greece. And we were there in Greece for 2 years as a way station, because the Greek government didn't want us there, but we went to an American school there. So, they let us stay there until such time as we were able to get landed immigrant status in Canada, in Toronto, where I now live. So it was a 4-year journey to get me from Tehran to Toronto, T&T. So that's a nice alliteration there. Now, you got to understand, I was a kid. I didn't want to leave my home or my friends. Maybe, Charisse, you can relate. Maybe your own kids don't, they're friends. It's their world, right? That's everything. Maybe that's the way it was for you and your besties when you were a young girl, a teenage girl. But time goes on, and I started to realize and see what an unbelievable and noble sacrifice my mom and dad had made. Just think about it. They were a couple at the time in their late 30s, early 40s, right, with 3 young kids, and they're leaving behind everything and everyone they knew and loved for a step into the unknown on the off chance that they could create a better life for me and my 2 younger brothers. Imagine the courage that took.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Imagine the faith it took. And so I started to see this, and I stopped being this brat. Oh, mom and dad, why'd you take me away from my home and my friends? And I started to just go, oh my God, what an act of love. What an act of unbelievable, unspeakable bravery. And so as time goes on, I started to realize they took us from a legacy of tyranny, of living under tyranny and repression, to a legacy of living under freedom and opportunity. And I started to just, like, my heart just opened up, and I'm like, oh my God, look at this. This is so amazing. We have this opportunity to create the life that we want. Yes, I miss my home. I miss my culture. I miss my friends. I miss all the beauty and glory that is Iran and being an Iranian. But I'm now in Canada, and a Canadian, and a North American, and a Westerner, someone who is living under a tradition of respect for human beings and human rights, and for creating a life of your dreams. And I started to see that the people in North America that I most closely resonated with were the entrepreneurs, because the entrepreneurs were the people on whom all of Western civilization's progress depends. Their ability to dream and dare to dream and pursue those dreams is what has moved the human race forward. And my father, my late father, was an entrepreneur. He was someone, Charisse, if you had met him, you would have loved this man. If you were his friend and you were looking for work, he'd try to get you a job in his own company. And if he couldn't do that, he'd say, come to the office. He'd like clear his calendar. He'd have his secretary like say, no one's coming in. And he would just pick up the phone and call all his buddies who owned companies or were high-level government officials. And he would just do the Iranian thing of talking to them and like, come on, you got to hire Charisse. Ethical manipulation. This is the thing our culture does really well. Until one of them goes, okay, fine, we'll hire her. Well, she can do this. Yeah, yeah. He says, okay, what are you going to pay her? And then they'd say, okay, I'll give her 100,000. You go, that's not enough. You got to give her 200,000. He'd negotiate for you. It was hilarious. And
That's
then,
amazing.
and then they'd come to a figure, and you go, okay, Charisse, this is where you're working. You heard what we got you for salary. You got to be there in an hour. So go, right? Like that's what he'd say. And then let's say at some point you wanted to start a business, and then he would just do the same. He'd like, clear his calendar, tell his secretary no one comes in, and he'd sit down and he'd listen. And he had this ability to focus on you, to make you feel like you were the most important human being in his world. And he would just listen to your ideas, your plans, and then he'd help you like get him a little better and stronger, because he had an MBA himself as well. And then he would give you access to people who could give you capital. He would give you access to some potential clients, depending on what you were doing. Honestly, he'd do this even if you were starting a business that was the same business as his in the same field. He didn't care. Dad was like, he just didn't believe there was competition. He's like, yeah, like the more the merrier. Let's bring him in. And then here's the most incredible and crazy thing. So Iran back then, if you were trying to buy a car, a house, an apartment, you'd go to the bank and get a loan like you would here, right? But the bank would only give you a certain amount, and it didn't matter how much the house cost, how much the car cost. This is what we're giving you. Figure it out for yourself.
Wow.
So people would go to friends and family to ask for the shortfall, right? So a lot of people went to my father. They just call him, and he had this regal name. Napoleon was his first name, right? The great French conqueror, right? They'd go, Mr. Napoleon, Mr. Billou, I'm trying to buy this car. I'm trying to buy this house. I'm trying to buy this apartment. I need 1,000. I need 5,000. I need 10,000. I need 20,000. And he would just say, oh, okay, sure. And he'd write you a check. If you were one of his friends, whatever the number was, he'd write the check, say, here you go, and go do it. And then people, thinking this was a loan, would go save money over time to come and pay him back, right? And people would come back 6 months later, a year later, 2 years later, 3 years later, whatever. And they're all excited because they're like, I got the money. I'm paying Mr. Billou back. I'm paying Napoleon back. And they'd come, here you go. And he's like, what's this? And so, you gave me a loan. I'm paying you back. Well, I didn't give you a loan. So what are you talking about? You gave me a loan. He says, no, that was a gift.
Wow.
Go, no, it's too much money for a gift. Like, Iranians do this whole tarof thing in our culture, right? And he'd go, don't insult me like that. Like, And they don't solve it. And then they just go, okay, okay, okay. But what am I supposed to do with all this money? Another Iranian thing. No American would ever say that, right? Like,
That's
no,
true.
no, just
That's
take,
true.
take the money, right? And then he'd look at him and go, you want to know what to do with it? They go, yeah. He'd say, go find someone who was as badly off as you were when you came to see me and give this money to them.
Oh my gosh, it gives me goosebumps.
That was my dad. And people in North America, they can't wrap their heads around this. They go like, come on, man, this isn't real. Nobody's really like that. Nobody does. I go, dude, you got to go to Iran. You got to see what people are like. They literally do this. They literally do this. And my father did this a lot. And they go, well, why? Why would he do this? I go, first of all, he was Christian. He was a devout Christian. He believed that he'd been blessed by God Almighty and his Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, and that it was his duty as a Christian to share those blessings with his fellow man and woman. Now, my dad didn't take himself very seriously, but he took his duties as a Christian very seriously. Secondly, Dad loved helping people. Like nothing made him happier than being able to do something for somebody else. It would give him energy for hours. You know what I mean? And he had money. Like this was not a hardship. He could write you the check. He had plenty of money to do whatever the heck else he needed to do. And I wanted to be like my father. I wanted to help people. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And I thought entrepreneurs are the best people because they're all like my dad. Well, turns out that's not necessarily true, but like I'm a kid. And like, so I decided to go into business for myself. And the type of business I do is I help entrepreneurs. And I have all kinds of programs to help entrepreneurs, you know, with sales, with branding and marketing, with, uh, you know, podcast guesting, with thought leadership. And I've got strategies, programs, and all that stuff that are really, really great at doing this. But, you know, the great Tony Robbins, who is like, in my opinion, one of the true thought leaders for success on the planet, maybe the greatest of our era. He once said, and this has always stuck with me, that success in life is 20% your strategy and tactics, but it's 80% your psychology and your soul. And 10 years after he first said that, he said, I was wrong. It's actually 5% strategy and tactics. It's 95% your psychology and your soul. And, you know, when people say like, what do you do? What's your background? Blah, blah, blah. And I say, look, I've got a master's degree from Georgetown University, an Ivy League school. I graduated magna cum laude. You know, I've read over 4,000 books. I've created programs. I'm probably the #1 expert on the planet on podcast guesting. I've been a guest on over 900 shows. I've written books on it. I speak on stages. I'm an accomplished speaker. And these are my skills. There's lots of things that I suck at, by the way, but this is the stuff I'm good at. But the thing that I believe sets me apart from anybody else on the planet is first of all, I'm Napoleon Billou's son, with all the glory of that man's greatness infused in my being from being raised by him. And I believe and love people, and I want to see people win. I want them to live their best life. And the way that I do it is all the things my dad and the Iranian culture taught me, which is to love people, to give to people, to believe in people, to pour into them more than they do in themselves. There's not a lot of folks like me out there in the North American market. There's plenty of Iranians like that, but I don't know about anybody else doing what I do, how I do it in this way. And that's what allows me to help people succeed and win at the highest levels.
I love that because I got into this, and the reason I did this podcast is because a couple of years ago I was struggling. Well, it was more than a couple of years ago. And I just realized that when I went to my W-2 job and came and found out that my replacement was sitting there in front of me, and you know, it was all because he needed to move back to Utah, and the CEO, they were best friends, and oh, I have a job for you, which was my job. And everything happens for a reason. Like I was going through divorce, and I needed to be home with my kids, especially since someone just got kicked out of preschool that same day. And so, I mean, like it happens for a reason. And I realized at that point that giving 70 hours a week and missing my children and not being able to be a mom to them because of that, there's such a better life and there's something else out there. And I think as entrepreneurs, it's not just for our life, it's to help other people and to change other people's lives. And so the fact that you do that is something that is sometimes thankless, but it's also from God. I do believe that as a Christian myself. And you talk about your parents were pioneers. So were my grandparents and great grandparents. They gave up everything to move here for religion. It's something that when you look at people, I don't think you have a clue, you meaning people, have a clue at the sacrifice that and the courage and the faith that people have to get up and move because it's so different now. We pop things in a microwave and it's done in a couple seconds. So talk to me about how you help people get out of their mindset. It's okay getting people to come or getting.
That's a wonderful question. Let me tell you a story of a woman that we worked with. So I work with my lady. She and I run our company together. Our company's called eCircle Academy. eCircleacademy.com is our website. And we met this lady, and she's a married woman. She's a doctor, and she and her husband live in Western Canada in Alberta, which is I think straight up north from Utah.
Yeah, there's a lot
Yeah,
of people that come.
yeah, yeah,
They go back and forth.
100%. And so this lady, uh, she has had a phenomenal skill set. She knows how to help people run these med spas, where they do the
Oh, yeah.
Botox
Mhm.
injections and so
Yep.
forth. And she'd run her own and all of that, but she hadn't been able to get her Med Spa Academy going. And here's what we did for her. And I got to say, most of this was done by my lady Teresa, not by me. So candidly, but what I did was I got this lady, Dr. Dia, into our program. And Teresa did a whole bunch of one-on-one calls with her. And the first thing she did was just be available, show up with a heart, show up with a love, and listen to her unburden herself, unburden her angst, unburden her imposter syndrome. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
this wasn't a one-time thing. This happened like repeatedly. And then Teresa would in that same call, because again, Teresa's had a background as a coach for Tony Robbins, and she's done 14,000 hours of entrepreneur coaching. So she would listen and then she would use her skills to help her get out of that space and put her in a space of belief in herself. And Teresa's had this background working with clinics, right? She managed dental clinics, psychology clinics, multidisciplinary clinics. So she said, look, we got to put some messaging together for you. So they put the messaging together and let's set up an event. And they set up this event. They invited 12 people to come to the event. And of the 12 people, four of them were really interested in what Dr. Dia had to say. And one of them ended up buying from her. And it was a seven-figure consulting engagement. Seven figures.
Wow.
Like, and this happened in two tranches, one of 500K, one of 550K, 32 days apart,
Oh my gosh.
right? And so, like, I'm explaining to you all the strategy and the tactics because Teresa has the background with the clinics and they set up the event and the messaging, which is what we do around that. All that was very important. But really, what allowed Dia to win was all the time Teresa spent with her on these calls to help her get whatever was in her way out of her way.
Mhm.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Because honestly, when you get that out of the way, success becomes yours in the most uncommon of hours,
Mhm.
right? And it was really, really a beautiful thing to help her with her messaging because you can't be all things to all
Right.
people. And Dia
Right.
was really all over the place with her messaging. So we really helped her tighten it up. But then you got to have someone believe in you until the point that you can believe in yourself. And far too many people in this helping industry, okay, and I consider our industry of coaching, consulting, expert work is we're helpers. We help
Yeah.
people. We're all about making other people's lives, businesses, health, relationships better. And the problem is that most of the people that are in this industry, they're not business people. They don't have a background in marketing, in sales, in business operations. They're just good at the thing they do. And so for many of them, the whole business side scares them, especially marketing and sales. How many times, Charisse, have you heard someone say, I love doing the work. I really don't want to sell it. I hate selling. I don't want to be one of those pushy people. I don't want people to think I'm reeking of commission breath as soon as I walk through the door. And I understand that impulse. The problem is they don't go after helping those people and getting the business they should be doing, right? And instead, some charlatan, right, who has good marketing skills, I call them charlatan marketers, comes and scoops up the business, but they couldn't care less whether they deliver. If they deliver, it's a happy accident at best. So everyone loses. Well, this good person, expert, loses because they don't get the business. The client loses because they don't get the help they need. And even the charlatan loses because, you know what? The karma bank of the universe, of God Almighty himself, is being continually stacked against them. And what goes around comes around inevitably.
No, that's very, very true. Okay, so I saw on one of your pre-discussions that you talked about how a person can make $30,000 in income in 30 days. And so I have this person that I came across. It's a client's son, deeply in debt at a very young age. I look at money as a number now. It ebbs and it flows. It comes and it goes. You can either make a lot and spend a lot, or it just depends. And so somebody that's like, oh my gosh, I'm really struggling and I'm not going to be able to quit my job if I don't make some money so that I can go do what I really want to do. How can you make money quickly?
Okay, that's a great question. Here's the thing, right? If your focus is on how can I make money quickly, that is an energy of you. Do you know what I mean? That's me, myself, and I. There's this chart that I was taught by a thought leader by the name of A. Justin Sterling. And this was in 2008 when I saw it. And the chart is like a funnel, goes like this with levels on it. And then there's a hole at the bottom of the funnel, almost like a little bit of a toilet drain, right? And it's called the World Sucks chart, right? And each level, the bottom, the toilet drain part, they call that the suck hole. Then the first level is me, like yourself. The second level is, relationship, someone you're in a relationship with. The third level is family or team. And the fourth level is organization, and then society, and then humanity as a whole, okay? All of mankind. And the point of this chart is where you put your focus will determine the quality of your life. If your focus is on me, myself, my petty problems, and you're dangerously near that suck hole and you're going to get sucked in worse, right? It's not going to go well for you. But if your focus is on helping others, then you're farther up that suck hole level. You're not near that suck hole, and you're going to live a great life. When I'm thinking about my problems and what I'm upset about, I'm nobody you want to be around, Charisse. But when I come on a show like yours and I speak about the people I want to serve and how I want to serve them, well, that's attractive. You're thinking to yourself, man, I like this guy. This guy's pretty cool. But if I came to you and all I had to tell you was, oh, yeah, I got up. It's so snowy this morning in Toronto. It's so horrible. And my dog bit me or whatever. After 2 minutes of listening to that, get me away from this dude, man. He's a loser, right? And the truth of the matter is that if you want to make a lot of money quickly, you got to stop thinking about making a lot of money quickly. You got to start thinking about who you're going to make a difference for. You got to take the attention off of you and put the attention on the other person. In a sales conversation, let's just say you and I were talking for business. And let's say you'd come to me and you said, Nicky, I love my life. I love my business, but I'm not making the kind of income I want to make. I'm not making the difference I want to make. And maybe I want to see if you might be able to help me. If my focus in that call is, I wonder if she's going to like me, wonder if she's going to do business with me, I hope she likes me, I hope she does business with me, you're going to feel that. And no matter how the conversation goes on the surface, something in your intuition, is going to say no, right? Rightly so. But if instead my thought is, Lord, let me get to know this lady. Let me understand what's troubling her. Let me understand what she wants to attain. Let me understand what is getting in the way. And let me deeply understand it. And Lord, if it is your will that I am the person to help her and that I am properly suited for this conversation will make that clear to me and to her. And let it be so, one way or another. You'll feel that too. You'll feel that too. And even if I was terrible in my conversation with you, even if I tripped over my words, you're gonna try to help me. You're gonna go, I like this guy. Let me make this better for him. And I've had people like when I've been, tired, nervous, whatever, who've said to me, you know, I like you, and I think you're the right person to help me. And they told me afterwards that was a terrible sales conversation, but it was a great human connection. That's what they told me. It
Yeah.
was a great human connection, and that's why I bought from you.
Mhm.
And I'm like, wow, that's really good. So all I focused on in that conversation, and I remember that conversation, was I was nervous because this was a person that I really thought, wow, this is an incredible human being. I'm honored even just to be with them right at that time. Like I was
Right.
lower down in my business journey. They were at a pretty good place. But I also was, I want to help him if I can. Like that was the whole thought in my head the whole time. I want to help him if I can. And part the way through this, I'm like, oh, I can totally help them. I can totally help them. And that vibration came across. So if you feel that, you'll go, okay, I need the help. Let me work with this guy,
Mhm.
right? Well, if other people come to you, maybe they're slicker than I am. Maybe their presentation's better than mine. But if their whole thought is, I'm going to get my commission, I'm going to sign this lady up, let's roll. You're saying, yeah, I don't think so. This does something about this doesn't feel quite right. And
Mhm.
that's what I would say to this young friend of yours, is I would say to him, stop focusing about you and your plight. Have it as a goal that you're going to, take care of these debts and you're going to make a certain amount of money, but park the goal. 99% of your attention should be on the human beings in front of you and how you can serve.
Love that. That's good. Good advice. And it's very true. Many times I give way more information because I always talk about how I fend for my clients. It's fight, educate, negotiate, and digitally market. And so,
I
um,
like that. That's super cool. Fen.
thank you.
Yeah, that's
Thank
good.
you. And it's true. I do. I fend for them. And so I will educate the pants off of them. And sometimes it comes up to no money from them, but I get referred like crazy. Like last year, my business was all referral. Like this year I'll be marketing as well, but did pretty well. And so I think that that's the part is when you take care of the people and they know that you genuinely care about them, they will. They want to be on board with you and they'll do whatever they can to be there. Okay,
Amen.
we're so out of time, but I want to ask a few more questions if you're okay with that.
Sure, of
You
course.
talked about how you are an accomplished speaker. And so I talk with a lot of people who want to get into speaking. So, what is your advice to somebody who wants to get into that business?
Okay, so don't do it the way I did it. Save yourself a bit of heartache. Go out and speak in front of any audience and don't worry about whether they can pay you.
Yeah.
Just go out and speak and put yourself out there. The first 200 talks I did, I didn't get paid a penny for, you
Oh,
know.
wow.
Yeah. However, I got better at speaking
Hmm.
and I met a lot of people at those talks. So I ended up doing business with some of those people. So they were financially fruitful. But I just came in there and I wanted to inspire the audience. I wanted to wow them. I wanted them to go, man, this guy was good. I wanted to give them a reason to want to have a further conversation with me. And at the end of each of those talks, I'd make an offer. I'd say to people, you know what? I can help you. Let me give you a free coaching session. And that free coaching session became an opportunity to open up a further dialogue to do business. So um, do that. Go get in front of lots of people, speak, 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 speak. Learn the business and the craft of speaking. Watch good speakers. Who are good speakers? So
Hmm.
I'll tell you, um, I love watching some of the orators, the great orators of our time. Um, you know, John F. Kennedy, spectacular speaker. Ronald Reagan, spectacular speaker. Martin Luther King, spectacular speaker, right? Tony Robbins, spectacular speaker. So I just go watch these people. I take notes on what I liked about how they spoke. And these days, all these speeches are available online. You
Yeah.
could go in a day and watch 10 speeches by great speakers and think about what you liked about what they did. And if you want to learn how to be a better speaker, there's tons of people who teach programs on that. Being a guest on a podcast is a form of speaking. I teach a program on that. I've written books on that. Check those out.
Mm-hmm. No, that's great. Great advice. Okay, let's get to the parent side because you are a dad.
Yes.
And so if you, and I love this perspective because as we talk about mompreneurs, there are dads, it takes a dad to be able to have him be a mom. And so what is your advice looking back that you could give a parent that you wish you would have known as a young parent?
Well, I'll say this to the moms because I'll give different advice to the moms than I will to the dads.
Mm-hmm.
So as a mom, if you're a new parent, this early time with your kid is the most important and precious time for both of you that you can possibly have. I would double down, triple down, quadruple time on prioritizing that over everything. You know what I mean? Because your child and you will be so enriched by that no business, no working 70 hours a week will ever do for you. So make that your number one priority as a mom. And your kid really needs you in that time at a level that is very difficult for someone who hasn't been a mom to understand. The level at which a kid needs you in the first several years is crazy. It's insane. So do that, 100% do that. For a father, um, there's two things you need to do. One is you got to be there to help your wife and be her rock because she's going to go through some crazy emotions for the first little while. And I mean crazy. You ladies are awesome, but when you get into your crazy, it can be intense. You need to not be impacted by any of the crazy, and you need to be there to just shower her with love. You got to be the rock on which her crazy waves break. And then when the crazy wave breaks, she's going to be more in love with you than she ever was before because she's raising your kid. You cannot have this person that is raising your child, especially in the early years, have anything from you but love and support. Okay, because I'll tell you this, if I were to do it all over again, that's what I would do differently. I'd be even more supportive, even more there for my wife as the mother of the kids than I was. And then you got to go provide during that time. You got to put that on your shoulders more in the first few years, until your wife is able to do that, wants to do that again, et cetera, et cetera. But in the first few years, that's what you ought to do. Now, by the time your kids hit about 9 years old to 13 years old, here's what you need to do. As a mom, you still want to love on them, but you want to start modeling for your daughter what kind of woman she wants to be, right? Because that's what your daughter needs to learn from. You're her number one role model for womanhood. And you need to be really careful about how you act, how you speak, what you do out in the world, because your daughter is soaking all that up and is going to do one of two things, either fully be you or fully reject you. And let me tell you, the fully reject you option is bad for your kid and for you. You'll be hurt like crazy if that ends up happening, but it's really bad for your kid because they'll act out in very dangerous ways for themselves, like drugs, promiscuous sex, all that jazz. So don't let it go down that road. As a mom to daughters, as a mom to sons from 9 to 13, you got to let go a little bit and let them start to turn into men and especially let them do what they want to do, which boys at that point are going to start to be a little bit more daring. They've been a bit daring when they were kids, but they're going to be more daring. They're going to do things that are risky, that are going to freak moms out, right? Like you don't want your son to like break his head or anything. You got to give him some space to do that. And it's going to be very difficult for you to do that, but you got to give him some space to do that. And you got to have a good relationship with the father so that the father steps in and role models for him how to become a man, because that's the primary thing. And again, you don't want your son to fully reject his father because then he'll act out in really stupid ways that you don't want to have happen. And as a father, when your daughter's in that age, you want to model what a good man looks like so she knows how to pick one. So she knows how to reject the bad guys. Because trust me, boys with hormones are coming for her, right? They're coming for her. And you need her to be grounded enough and smart enough to know which ones to let into her circle and which ones to keep away, right? And that's your job as a father. You got to model what kind of thing. And then as they go from the teenage years, right? As a dad, again, the girl's going to be the apple of your eye, and you're her father protector. And as the mom, you want to do everything in your power so your daughter doesn't get alienated from you, because a lot of girls do at that point. They get alienated from their moms and they run off and, Dad, I hate mom, and all that crap. You don't want to have that stuff happen. You want to do everything to have your daughter understand you're there for her, but she's still your kid. And this is the other thing that parents got to understand. They're your kid. Okay. They do not run the show. And if you let them run the show, shame on you. Shame on you. You have messed things up. And both of you need to have clear boundaries for them. And as far as the sons are concerned, when they turn teenagers, mom's there and she's doing her thing, but really dad needs to be like highly present in that teenage boy's life and need to give him some good boundaries and push him. This whole thing about playing on video games and their iPhone all day, that is not on. That is not on. You've got to make sure you don't do that and that you have your kids doing things that push them. My sons, one just turned 20 on Sunday. The other one's turning 18 in March. My 20-year-old finished high school in June 2024. He was all set to go to university, study kinesiology, decided not to do that. And he's working full-time. He's a health and fitness coach. He works 7 days a week, 90 hours a week. Wow. He loves what he's doing. He doesn't go out partying. He's a man on a mission, and he's a savage. He's an utter savage. And it's because of how I raised him that happened, right? My other son, he's in his final year in high school, grade 12. He's got an A average. He's ready to go to university to do his kinesiology degree. I don't think he's going to stop. He wants to go through with that. He had a business last summer and a job at the same time. He plays a couple of sports. My kids aren't lazy, and there's a reason for that, because as their father, I push them. I love them, but I push them. And it's a father's job to push his sons. His sons really need to be pushed. And as parents, both of you need to have boundaries in place for your children, and you need to have expectations for them. Because if you don't, and if you're like far too many parents are these days, which is you throw up your hands and you let the internet raise your kids, you've done them a huge disservice.
Yeah, so true. So very true. Great advice, Nicky. So thank you so much for being on.
Yeah, my pleasure.
If our guests wanted to learn more about you, get a hold of you, how would they do that?
Well, my name's unique. I'm the only Nicky Billou on planet Earth. So if you go on any social media platform and you type in NickYBillou, you'll find me and say you listen to me on the show. I'll accept your connection request. We can connect there. If you are an entrepreneur and you want to have a conversation about taking your business to another level, I have a calendar link. It's at ecircleacademy.com/appointment. And we book 45 minutes of my time as a gift from me to you. Let's have a conversation about what you're trying to accomplish and see if I can help.
I love that. That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Unbreakable Moms, we talked about a lot of things, but finding your passion, making sure that you know what you want to do, and having the faith to go forward with it. Take that first step is so important. So go out and make it a great day. Beautiful moms, remember, you are unbreakable. Keep illuminating the world with your strength, pursuing your dreams, and reveling in the splendor of motherhood. This is Charisse Walker, bidding you farewell for now. Stay tuned for more empowering conversations on the next episode of the Unbreakable Mompreneurs podcast. Until then, keep shining bright. Signing off with love, Charisse Walker.